the Kids Online Safety Act is bad for America. Also, and I was talking about this earlier, how I want kids to be safe on the internet, but I don't want kids to be on sites they shouldn't be and make it more difficult and annoying for adults, right? Like, I don't think kids should be on social media. So, social media is very easy to also say that something like Discord is a social media because you can message people. Steam, you can message people, so maybe people will call it a social media. Online platforms, Club Penguin, sure. Online platforms of games like RuneScape, Roblox, Club Penguin, perfectly mentioned. You can chat with people, so people would also consider them social media. And it means that most of the time you have to water down those experiences or make them less internet and anonymous, which isn't good for adults. Like, I want to be able to like call someone the R word or slurs without them trying to find out where I live and kill me. You know? Let's see what Optimus has to say about it, though.
Another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Kids Online Safety Act, which is a legislative bill that has been being debated for years at this point. To a lot of you, you probably haven't heard about it before. This might be your first time hearing about it, but it is a piece of legislation and realistically a concept, I guess, that has been an argument for society for years, right? Now, obviously, over the last 20 or so years, as the internet has basically grown in every aspect of our lives, social media and things like that have popped up, and it has transformed the way that people socialize. It's transformed the way that...
And I want to say in a very unhealthy way. As an adult, I'm so glad that when I grew up, social media was not nearly as big. Right? I think around the time I was getting into high school, Facebook started, but before that, it was MySpace. And there wasn't like really dangerous algorithms to like keep you scrolling on MySpace. And same thing with very early Facebook. And I don't even think maybe Instagram existed or it started to exist around the time that I was maybe 15, 16. And once again, wasn't super predicated on keeping you on the platform, actively scrolling all the time and feeling like you're getting mobbed by other people as you scroll, right? I'm trying to use the young hip person lingo. I don't know if I use that word right. Those things now really like mess with the heads of kids. Me personally, if I see a more handsome person than me, I'm not gonna be like, damn, that guy's really handsome. I feel down because I'm not as handsome. I'm like, hey, go that guy. That guy's hot. Look at him go. I'm fine being me. I don't care. And I've always been that way, but not everyone has the same brain as me. And I don't expect everyone to have the same brain. So people being easy to manipulate into continuing to scroll or having lower self-esteem, things like that. That's a lot of what social media does. And I don't think it's healthy for a developing brain, i.e. the brain of a child.
That people interact with one another. It's basically reshaped the entire internet as it stood anyway. And there's a lot of pros and cons to this, right? There's a lot of good things that happen from this increased online interconnectivity, and there's also a lot of bad things. Now, some of these bad things include some social negatives.
Yo, I feel like you would be good on a podcast. You know, I have a friend who does a podcast mostly about sports, mostly about football, and I've kind of been watching a lot of football more because of my wife and my father-in-law. So, well, you know, I could maybe hop on the podcast and be like the gamer who understands small amounts of football and talk, but I don't know enough about the sport, you know? I'm barely understanding plays and shit.
Illness seems to be more common today. A lot of people are spending way too much time online. They're taking things online way too seriously. They're kind of, you know, disinterested in their normal lives. It's a pretty big swing for people to go through.
And I want to pause again. I'm pausing way too much. What he said there is they're taking stuff online too serious is very, very important. I think that a lot of people act like their social life only exists on the internet and that you don't need I should make a podcast about gaming. You don't need a social life outside of the internet. And I think that that's very dangerous. Because if you ever don't have access to the internet, now you no longer have access to your social life. If your phone service isn't working, if your phone breaks, if you don't have a computer anymore, if the internet in your citywide for a few days is down, if you live in a rural area where you have bad internet and bad connectivity, you lose access to all of your Discord friends, to all of your Steam friends, to all of your online gaming. If you only do live service online gaming, you're fucked. If you only do interacting with people through the internet, you're fucked. Right? I think having even just a few close friends or a few friends that you can hang out with in person, in your city, in your town, in your area, even if they're like 35, 40 minutes away, that's a drive for some people. I live in Texas, 35 to 40 minutes ain't shit, is always recommended. I think that it's healthier for a developing brain. It's probably healthier as an adult as well. To have a few friends that are real friends that you know IRL. Even if some of your closest friends are 8 hours, 15 hours, 25 hours away, you still need to have probably close friends who are close to you as well.
Through in what is basically their lifetime. I mean, you got to think there are people alive that weren't around for like even really the beginning of personal computers. Okay?
That's crazy.
And in their lifetime, they have seen
I'm almost 30.
computers go from things that are the size of a room down to basically microscopic. They've seen the internet come along. They've seen social media, all this shit, right? So
This is
it's
a computer.
been a pretty quick transition for humanity to have to go through. But with these negatives, there is always the worry, I guess, that they will harm society. More specific to this video, I guess, those involving the harms and the risks for children online. Now, before we even get any further in the video, I'm gonna go ahead and say I can't stress this enough. I think everybody understands that there are dangers for children online.
Sure.
Most children shouldn't really be on like social media.
I agree.
Like that. It's not good for them. It's not really great for their development. It causes
Correct.
a lot of problems. It puts them at risk for people like child predators and whatnot. I mean, there's a ton of
Coming from a man with no kids, Optimus, as far as I know, actually, Optimus is my dad. YouTube video comment, you'd have to look. He's spitting. Right? There's all of these things that are dangerous for children on the internet. I don't want children to not have access to the internet. I want children to not have access to those things. Okay, I live in Texas. Perfect example. Texas has banned most porn sites. Pornhub is banned in Texas. They are, and I think Florida as well. They're going to pull their servers out of those states. If I want a child to not have access to the internet. No, that's fine, right? Like, I think the easiest way to do it is just not let the kids have access to the internet. Also, because I don't want to read their shitty takes about Palestine and Israel on Twitter, right? Like, it's true, right? But in Texas and a few other states, porn websites are banned. And they didn't do it for adults. They did it for children. They did it to keep kids off porn, right? Okay, well, are you going to ban Twitter? Are you going to ban Reddit? They can find it just as easily there, but those sites aren't labeled as pornography websites. You're not going to do that. That's stupid, right? And those websites have actually completely pulled out of those states because they're not having as much traffic anymore. And those places still have access to pornography for children because you can just use a VPN. Kids aren't stupid. If kids have a VPN on their family computer, if their dad or mom or uncle have a VPN service that they subscribe to that allows multiple users, they already have access to it. So these countermeasures and preventatives that we're using for kids are easily bypassed, sometimes even by the children they're meant to protect.
of different inherent risks, but I think most of us can agree that the answer to this is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, you don't throw out the whole internet because
This
kids are unsafe.
Online Safety Act has been pushed pretty heavily, especially
You throw
in
out
the
the
last
kid.
few
I'm
days,
kidding.
because like I said, this has
Kidding.
been something that's been getting debated for a while. This piece of legislation has existed for a while,
It's fun as
but
fuck.
it's basically sat there dormant, and it's in its last few days of viability before, you know, basically it won't pass, and they're trying to push it through now. They're trying to get this thing sent through probably before Trump becomes president, and they're basically painting it like if this isn't passed, like this is the end of child safety online, right? Like this is the law that's gonna save and protect our kids.
I think it will.
Also, before we go further in this video, I want to go ahead and present one simple thing here, okay? Anytime you hear the government come along and say, hey, we want to make this massive sweeping change to things, we want to pass
It's
this
never for the
legislation,
kids.
we want to enter in all these new regulations on
It's for
things,
themselves.
we must protect the kids.
They're doing it for
This is all
themselves.
about the children.
It's not.
You should almost inherently distrust them simply for saying that. Now, I know what some of you are already going to say because
That's called a scapegoat. They're using kids as an excuse to get legislation passed. The same way they used to use racism as an excuse to get legislation passed. The same way they used to use video games as an excuse for violent behavior in kids, right? Like, oh no, it's this damn Grand Theft Auto that's causing school shootings. Meanwhile, I played Grand Theft Auto my entire life as a kid and never once thought about shooting up my fucking school. Weird how that works.
it's the same tired argument that you hear from these people all the time. Because, like I said on
Oh
Twitter,
no, violent
whenever
movies.
this
That's
is
the reason why
presented
kids
as
are
the
shooting up
reasoning, we
schools.
must save
Sorry.
our kids. Whenever this is presented as the reasoning, you can't oppose it vocally. You can't say, no, this won't protect kids, or you're lying, or whatever, right? Because the
Then you're a
automatic
scumbag.
comeback is, oh, so what? You don't
You don't
wanna
care about
protect
kids?
What's wrong with
Not
you?
my
You
fucking
don't care
kids.
about children's safety? You don't think kids should be protected?
My answer My answer would be, those aren't my fucking kids. You know how I protect my kids? By making sure my kids don't do things they're not supposed to be doing, by actually parenting my children. Isn't that crazy how you can just parent your kids and most of these things don't become an issue? Dang, GTA made me a convicted felon. That's crazy. I played GTA and I went and robbed a bank. That's insane.
Online. And obviously,
Yeah, my
it's
bad,
not
bro.
dishonest
GTA made me do
because
it.
Nobody is saying that. Nobody thinks that. The concern is with the legislation itself, which I can't believe that Americans haven't realized this yet, but very frequently, the government names bills that they are introducing very dishonestly to literally basically misguide people on
Into
what the
voting for them, yeah.
legislation is actually passing. For instance, they'll have a law come along that's called like the Save America and Protect Everyone Act, right?
And it's like about putting black people back in
Then
chains.
you look inside of it, and they're actually putting $700 million towards trying to
I
pop.
want children to work in the coal mines, no internet there.
That's not protecting Americans and saving the country. What is this? And that's
Holy
basically
shit.
what this is. Now, over the last couple of decades,
You to the coal mines now on Facebook. Get to the coal mines. Are you watching TikTok? Get in the coal mines.
the government has repeatedly to try passing laws, basically, that will, over time, basically erode people's free speech, erode people's constitutional rights, invade their privacy more and more, make things way more restrictive under the guise of making them safe. Especially since 9/11, this has been the case. And it turns out that none of this legislation ever seems to really do much of anything to make anyone safer.
That's crazy,
So
right?
You see this whole Kids Online Safety Act.
You got Helldivers? I do not.
It's
I'm not a
very
Helldivers
vague
gamer.
in the wording, like, you know, for what issues it's
Why is this
tackling.
boss a
It's
fucking
basically
egg?
saying things like, we're going to mandate that websites have parental features to, like, you know, stop their children from seeing certain things or interact.
Okay, if that's how far the law went, I think that would be a great fucking idea. If the law was, we're gonna make it easier for parents to parent. Awesome. Hell, I'm voting for that. Fuck yeah. Right? Like, sure, I want kids to be able to discover things, but I also want parents to be able to decide when kids can discover things. Right? My mom said, "Oh, that game's immature. That's fine. I think he's fine to play this. He's 12. He could probably play some Grand Theft Auto, right?" But if my mom said, "No, he's 12. He's not playing no immature game yet," that's my mom's decision, right? I can't. I mean, sure, I could be a little upset. I could be sad. You know, my friends are playing GTA at 12, and I'm not. But it's the fact that she was choosing to parent. She was choosing to say yes, that's okay, or no, that's not okay. When the clerk told her, "Hey, this game's immature. This violence, blah blah blah, sex, nudity, blah blah blah," right? She told her those things, and my mom was like, "And he'll live." Putting parental controls on a website, on a computer, on a phone, on a Nintendo Switch, right? All of that is fine. That's cool. If that's as far as a law goes, I think that's a great law. But as you see,
Acting with certain features, we're going to introduce universal.
I think my Steam
child
is just
safety
Beanie
monitoring
Thuggish, all one
on these
word,
websites.
and it'll
But
be the same
problem
picture
with
as
that
my
is basically all
CTV.
of the social media that they claim are problems. You know, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all of these, right? They already have these features in place.
They
In
do,
fact,
yeah.
all of the answers to a lot of these problems regarding children's safety actually starts in the home. It has nothing to do with
Correct.
needing more government regulation. It has nothing to do with
Parents
the
need to
federal
parent.
government needing to quote unquote protect you. It's about people being good parents. It's about people having boundaries with their children. It's about people saying
Eek.
no to their children. And it's
Eek.
about reforming the way that the youth in our country think in the first place. So, example number one, the Patriot Act, okay? Now, this was back in the
That's an old one,
2000s.
yeah.
This was passed, basically giving the government way more
that King
oversight
Capo?
and
Let's go,
overreach
dude.
into the privacy of Americans. That way they could investigate potential terrorists because, you know, we had to protect Americans. We had to save the children.
And they just use that to invade our privacy, by the way, which is really cool. I'm so glad they passed a law that said, "Hey, we're trying to keep you guys safe," and instead they just invaded our privacy.
We can't have
Badass.
9/11 happen, folks. And so they passed this bill. They made all these changes, and now we live in basically a fucking surveillance state where the NSA and the federal government have tapped your phone.
Isn't that
They're
sick?
reading your emails. They have keyloggers on your fucking devices. They're listening in on every fucking, you know, Discord or phone call, anything that you make. The smart mics in all of your Wi-Fi products in your house, like your Google
They're listening
Home
all
and
the
shit like
time.
that or whatever, they're recording you. They're
Mhm.
monitoring what you're saying. And this isn't even conspiracies. This is just objective fact at this point, right? And even though the government acted to make everybody so safe, and they made all these changes.
Don't we
and
still
way
have
more
terrorist attacks
restrictive,
sometimes?
And they have their eye on everybody. Notice how terrorism is suddenly not gone. Notice
Yeah.
how Americans still aren't
I was
safe.
right about to
There's
say.
fucking drones flying all over the country right now that nobody seems to know who they belong to. No one has any answers on. How safe do you feel with that going on? How safe do you feel going into Walmart or a school or anything and being shot and killed in a mass shooting, right? So nobody is actually safer when the government passes these regulations and these laws. And even with all the online legislation that they've tried doing, you know, the COPPA, like that was a big deal here on YouTube, where you have to mark your video safe for kids and shit like that. What exactly has that done to make kids safer online? What has any of this legislation that's been passed for decades now done to make the internet safer for children and make it to where, you know, they're not facing the effects of like TikTok brain rot and, you know, social pressures and shit at school? What has anything done here that the government's done? So they've done nothing effective. They've done nothing to curtail the problem for decades, and they've used this constantly and this like guise of making people safer constantly as an excuse to erode your rights and take your freedom.
Now, a lot of you are probably going to say, this guy sounds like a 50-year-old man who's fed up with the government. He's like maybe 25, 26. Optimus is very young. He just also has a brain. So, like, the problem is so many people think, or so many people are told constantly that shit like this is conspiracy and that it's not real, and that we need to protect the people, we need to protect ourselves from terrorists, and we just give up more and more of our rights because everyone is just told that that's the status quo and that's the thing you're supposed to do. If they say, we're doing this thing to protect kids, and you say, no, that's not protecting anyone, then they say, fuck you, you must hate kids. Like, the truth is, no, I love myself and I love my kids, so I'm not going to let you guys invade our privacy more. Not even just that, you're also taking away a lot of our civil liberties, right? I think having access to the internet, and this is the least free the internet's ever been. The internet is slowly becoming more democratized and governmentized. Man, fuck them kids. Yeah, true, not my kids, like truly, but the internet has been slowly more and more regulated since this is no longer the Wild West internet that it used to be in the early 1990s. I'm sorry, in the like mid 1990s to early 2000s. It is not the same internet anymore. It is almost all advertisement and AI foot traffic, which is very frustrating. We're almost at the day internet theory. Like, we're almost there. And with extra government regulation on top of it, it's just going to exacerbate that problem significantly. And I think that creating an internet that feels free of government regulation is probably the safest thing to continue. Is probably the safest thing to continue to do so that people can speak freely without being maybe prosecuted by their government. Yeah, we got to live through the wild. It was cool.
Internet worse. And what has come from it? Absolutely nothing. And that's what's going to come from this. I mean, when you look at COSA, right, a lot of the coverage is like, oh, but there's a lot of bipartisan support. Democrats and Republicans both voted for it, right? It's going to be a great thing. The only reason that this is even being said is because they want to like hyper focus on that bipartisan part.
That everyone likes
makes it sound to people like this.
If everyone likes it in the government, it's probably a bad thing.
On this one. But if
everybody in the government likes it, it's probably really bad for you as a citizen. I'm just gonna go let you know.
Bad reality is both Democrats and Republicans voted for the Patriot Act. They vote for all of the wars that happened.
Yeah.
They vote for all of the, you know, restrictive agencies.
What's the next? Yeah, if the internet's so good, where's the internet too?
They both vote for everything that erodes people's freedoms and ruins your quality of life.
Yep.
They allow these companies to run fucking unchecked across all these industries just because they're buddies with the CEOs and their lobbyists are paying them money, right? But all of a sudden now they have a real interest in protecting you. But somehow people aren't putting two and two together that, wow, maybe that's a little suspicious, right? Why is it now suddenly that the government wants to protect me when they don't give a fuck any other time? It's almost like there's an ulterior motive behind doing something like this. Now, the reason why laws like this continue to be introduced, where they want to make it to where, you know, we're protecting the kids, they want to put more restrictions on social media and shit like that, is because the government realizes what social media and the internet allows, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of social media is just brain-rotted, stupid arguments and shit, but people use these places as outlets, and they use these places to talk about things that are going on in reality. A lot of people call them digital town squares and shit. Now, obviously, they're ran by private companies, so you're at basically the discretion of those companies when you use them, but you're not at the discretion for
Yeah, that's one thing I'll say is everyone who says, "Oh yes, I think we should make sure that all platforms don't have any sort of bias." One, depending on who you follow and the content you like, you will create biases in an algorithm. That's just how algorithms work. They want you to keep scrolling. They want you to stay on the platform, so they will show you things that you like, not things you dislike. Right? Yes. Okay. So if you're a K-pop fan, you're gonna see tons of K-pop. If you like political stuff, you're gonna see tons of political stuff. You like talking about human rights and animal rights, you're going to see a lot of human rights and animal rights stuff. That's just how it works. If you're LGBT and you focus on tons of LGBT and LGBT rights and movement things, you're going to see tons of it. It's just how it works, right? It's the vast majority of what is going to show up on your timeline once you start interacting with it and liking it. That is a bias. So to say that you don't want bias social media is a lie. What you don't want is you don't want bias social media that's against your bias. Most people, that's what they want, right? Like, for the longest time, Donald Trump was banned on certain social medias, and people were like, yeah, keep him banned, right? And now he's, like, going to get unbanned on a lot of stuff, especially since Elon Musk now owns X. So, of course, he's not going to keep Donald Trump banned, right? That's a bias that people don't like. They're like, whoa, why is this guy going to be spew hatred on his website? Like, that, your bias is that you don't like Donald Trump, so you don't want him to be able to spew hatred. But if your side spews hatred, it's fine. Everyone's biases. Like, be honest with yourself. So these are digital town squares in a sense, but they're digital town squares that still have some amount of left or right leaning ideology because people run them, right? An algorithm shows you what you want to see, but a person still chooses what things are going to be allowed and not allowed on the platform, right? If it's a Russian website and you're posting a bunch of anti-Russian propaganda, maybe they're going to fucking ban your ass. That's just how it works, right? Like Ukraine versus Russia stuff. You know, that's what I mean by that. That's inherently why I don't consider websites like social media's digital town squares. Because in a town square, the prevailing argument will rule and the worst argument will be booed off stage. But you get to make your argument. Sometimes you don't even get to make your argument on these social media websites because they're too left or too right leaning. This is how it works.
For instance, of the federal government to like go on Twitter and say President Biden is a dum-dum, right? Or I hate Trump. You're not really at the government's discretion for that point, right? Because it's your First Amendment right to just be like, yeah, fuck them guys, fuck the government, you know. Now,
you don't have a First Amendment. You don't have the freedom of speech on a.
Bound by the First Amendment.
You don't have a freedom of speech on the internet. You have a conduct, terms of services and conduct or whatever. That's what you have. So if they say you cannot slander your president on said website, and you slander your fucking president on said website, they can ban your ass. It's just the truth. Hopefully it never comes to that, but please keep that in mind.
They can ban you, but the thing is a lot
that
of
website
the
can ban
they're
you.
Trying to push has just already been normal, right? Like there's already parental controls on everything, and ultimately, like as a parent, if you don't want your kids seeing bad shit online, then don't let them use the websites. I mean, people act as if like
control what your kids do.
Control what my child does.
Yes, you can.
You can take their phone. You can shut off their cell service.
You sure can.
On their phone. You can confiscate the computer. You can put on the safe search. You can put on the parental locks. You can force them to use kids-only accounts. Your child does not have to have TikTok or Snapchat or Facebook to live a life. I mean, me, for instance, I didn't have a smartphone until I was in fucking high school. Why did I not have a smartphone until I was in high school?
Because his parents.
Because there was no need for an 11-year-old child to have
Real
a
nigga.
smartphone.
His parents were good parents. My mom made sure we had phones by the time we were like 10 years old so that she could get a hold of us. She was a single working parent. We didn't have like super badass phones. We had phones that she could call us. Hey, you get on the school bus? All right, the door's unlocked. Call me when you get inside of the house. Okay, I love you. Bye. Okay, you're home? All right, wait until your brothers get home too, and then lock the door. Okay, tell your brothers they need to call me when they get home if they forgot. Okay, love you. Bye. That's what my mom did. For a long time, we had very basic phones. I think I had a pretty cool phone. I had like a Motorola Razr or some shit. So it was, I had a little flip phone. I had like the Motorola Razr. It was a dope ass phone, but it wasn't lavish. It wasn't amazing. Texting was a bitch. Yeah, same here. I understand. You had to press that shit 3 times, 2 times, press the space button, press that bitch 3 times, press it 2 times, wait, press it 2 times, wait, press it 1 time, press space. Man, I hated that shit. Just to type LOL, by the way. When I got my first smartphone, I was in college. I paid for my first smartphone, and I also paid for my cell service myself. Up until then, I think I might have been, I'm lying. I might have been like 17 or 16. But I paid for it myself. My mom didn't pay for it for me. My mom told me one thing. She was like, I know you got your own phone line now, because you don't like listening to me. and you don't want me to tell you who you can and can't talk to. So you paid for your own phone. That was an adult thing to do, even though you're not an adult yet. Please don't make a social media. I don't want you to be on social media until you are an adult. I said, okay. I did not make a Facebook account until the day I hit fucking 18 years old. Or 17 years old, something like that. Because I think 17 is legal in the state of Texas. I didn't have a Facebook. I think I had a MySpace before that because my mom didn't know I had a MySpace. But I never used it, really. But I didn't have a Facebook until then. And I understood why my mom told me, right? A lot of kids are just like, what the fuck? My mom's being unreasonable. She doesn't want me to have Snapchat. She doesn't want me to have Facebook. She doesn't want me. Those things are brain rot for children. They're not good for you. But you see how my mom parented me? I didn't need the government to say, you can't make that until you're 17. Like, right? Like, have age verification. Like, take a picture of your photo ID. Like, no, I don't need that. I just need a parent who's going to tell me what to do and what not to do. And if I don't listen, I get my fucking ass beat. That's how it should work.
Need for it. And in my opinion, I don't think most smartphone using children today should have them either. Why don't kids, if they need a phone or whatever, have flip phones and shit like that, where they don't sit there and mindlessly doom scroll social media?
This is why Optimus should be my dad.
Parents give in to their children. And, oh, but all my friends have the iPhone.
Who gives a fuck?
I have one, mom. It's societal shit. It's consumerism and all this other shit where everyone has to keep up with the Joneses. Oh, well, the Joneses let their kids use TikTok. We'll
Fuck the Joneses.
If we don't let our kids use TikTok. Who gives a shit about being the weird parents if it means that your child isn't on there wanting to kill themselves because of the comments or developing eating disorders because they're looking at models and shit on Instagram all day? Which one do you think as a parent sounds worse? And well, apparently most parents seem to think, well, they don't give a shit. But apparently the answer to that is not making parents.
Another issue is that some parents have issues raising their children. And by that I mean they don't raise their children. They put a screen in front of their children. They say, here, little Timmy, here's a tablet. And they fucking watch Cocomelon for 8 hours. Or, here, little Timmy, here's a tablet. And they watch YouTube and TikTok and they doom scroll for 12 hours. But I don't think it's inherently that they don't want to be weird. It's that a lot of parents don't have time for their children. They say, oh, you know, I'm working a lot. I have too many bills. I have other priorities. And I have to balance a home, work, and social life all at once. Motherfucker, you chose to have kids. You don't get a social life anymore, bitch. Raise your kids.
Better and making
if you got time for a social life, you have time. But if you don't have time, don't put a tablet in front of your kids and have it be raised.
Decide what happens when
internet raises my children. Yeah,
just as ineffective, if not even less effective than the other alternative, right? So,
look, I was in the trenches of the internet as a kid, but the internet didn't raise me. I've seen everything that you should not see as a child on the internet when I was a kid. Okay, I saw that shit, but the internet itself did not raise me. My mother raised me, and she did, I want to say, a pretty decent job for being a single parent. When there was questions to be asked, there was questions to be answered. When there was discipline to be had, there was discipline to be given, okay? And that's what a parent's supposed to do. A parent's not supposed to say, oh, my kid's acting up in school. Ah, dang, it's that freaking tablet. I gotta take it away from them. But mom, if you take away my tablet, I'm gonna kill myself. And you give them the tablet. You need to be stern with your kids.
So now we're sitting here where people are just like constantly wondering, like,
flying?
Are we gonna make our kids safer with this law, or is this another bullshit law they're passing that does basically nothing to protect me or my kids? And the funniest part is while they're like, oh, this COSA bill, it's bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats like it. They
That's a bad thing.
Seem to point out very frequently that they completely disagree on what exactly this is supposed to be targeting. While Democrats are like, oh, well, we got to prevent our children from seeing extremist content and shit that can cause mental disorder and stuff like that. You have Republicans who are saying, we need to stop the woke trans LGBTQ ideology. We need to stop all of this.
To be fair, that is radical ideology. So, look, when you really think about it, they both just said the same thing. Like, look, I'm bipartisan. Look, I'm in the middle. I'm a normal fucking person. But you just said the same thing. I mean, like, let's go back and listen to that one more time.
Woke leftist mob shit.
Let's hold on. Let's
seeing extremists to be targeting. While Democrats are like, oh, well, we got to prevent our children from seeing extremist content and shit that can cause mental disorder and stuff.
Extremist content.
Stuff like that.
Not the mental disorder part. I'm not saying that people that are LGBTQ plus have mental disorders. That is not what I said. Extremist content.
Republicans who are saying we need to stop the woke trans LGBTQ ideology. Woke?
extremist. Everything else in there is a little fucky. You know, like maybe you could construe things a certain way and say that what I just said is very offensive. But just hear me out. There's extremists on both sides of every argument.
We need to stop all of this woke leftist mob shit. So while it's quote unquote bipartisan, they both see the reasons that this needs to pass completely differently. And they have completely different worldviews on why this would be enforced. Suddenly though, that part isn't what's making the headlines. That part's not the part that's getting pushed to the average American. But the similarities in why they both want it is because they as the government can use it as basically a stepping stone. And I hate
Oh, he
using this
died.
argument, but
The Scorpion
this is
King.
the reality of government. And this is exactly what laws like this COSA stand to really do. So what they do is they notice a societal problem. Oh, kids are being harmed by social media. They're being harmed by the internet. Step one is to pass quote unquote common sense bipartisan legislation to tackle the issue, where they name it something like this, Kids Online Safety Act, to make it seem like it's real legit, real good, gonna work. Then a couple years later, when of course that law did nothing to actually solve any problems, they come back and they say, well, we need more restriction, actually. We need more legislation. Last time we didn't take it far enough. We actually need to push it even further. We need to restrict more. And so then another law is going to come up down the line where they got to push the goal line just a little bit closer, right? Just a teeny bit further. And they constantly will do this over the next few years, maybe next few decades, until they get to a point where they've created an overarching system of restriction, regulation.
Where the internet is no longer the internet.
Gives them an overarching power to do basically
whatever the fuck they want.
And then it gets to a point where down the line they start floating the idea of digital ID and stuff like that. So basically,
damn, that's crazy.
Social media or
you have to have age verification.
Use most websites. You have to provide, your ID, your name,
as verification.
Maybe where you live, maybe your social security number, some information, right? That way.
Crazy.
We know who you are, because what if you were to say something extremist online? We would need to know who you are. That way the government could show up at your door and fuck with you about saying it. And if you've read any sort of history book, you'll realize that once the government starts getting the power, to basically criminalize in their own way dissenting opinions about
it almost sounds like Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. Do you remember how people were prosecuted for saying mean things about Hitler or Mussolini? Think tank.
them, or alternative opinions that maybe stand against the narrative that the state is providing, then they use that power to inflict tremendous pain and suffering back on the people
just a thought.
And it's already happened.
Maybe I'm wrong.
We're already at a point, like I said, we're in a surveillance state where me recording this audio right now and putting it out on the internet, there is some sort of NSA loop there that's fucking scanning through everything, that's catching this audio, detecting if anything crazy is going on. Whenever you comment something online, there's going to be a record of that kept so that if the NSA ever needed to read it, they're going to be able to see it. You make a phone call to mom later and she tells you she baked cookies, there's going to be some NSA fucking roll of tape there that has that caught. Any email you send, they've got a copy of that somewhere. But remember,
NSA's finna call and ask what kind.
That's why you're so safe.
What your mom made? Can we get some?
Your house, you have no idea who they are. You wonder if it's the Chinese, or if they're looking for a nuclear bomb, or if it's aliens, or if it's just your neighbor flying his drone. You'll never know. But hey, at least you're safe, right? And that's why we need more. We need more regulation. We need more government oversight. We need their nose deeper up our asshole. That way they can sniff the turd before it even comes. Because God forbid if they didn't catch the terrorists before it happened, or they didn't stop children from being, exposed to ideologies they don't agree with, or maybe see something.
It's funny. I agree with all of this. And it's kind of fucked up because generally I don't like to speak about things that aren't gaming related, but this is also internet related. And that's very important to what I do. I play a lot of video games that require the internet, and I post a lot of things on the internet. So I kind of want the internet to stay as it is. I think the internet should be more relaxed, but that's not going to happen. So I would like for it to stay as it is. And this has been very eye-opening that other people around my age, a little younger than me maybe, also kind of agree that a lot of these things that are being pushed for the internet, not even just in America, by the way. I believe Canada has a similar incentive or a piece of legislation trying to be pushed through, where they're trying to do age verification via your actual state/government ID. And that makes it way more difficult to be anonymous on the internet as a user. And yes, it's good for internet safety, but it's very bad for civil liberties and freedom, which is exactly what a lot of people use the internet for.
That they don't like, or people that post opinions they don't like, that'd be a problem. I mean, just to wrap this video up, back when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he ended up dropping these things called the Twitter files. He basically sent all of this exposed information out through journalists to the public that showed Twitter, before Elon Musk purchased the company, was essentially
stealing all your data
repeatedly by
the government.
US federal government. They were told to censor certain topics. They were told to bury certain plot lines. For instance, when the Hunter Biden laptop story was a big fucking deal, Twitter silenced that because it was so close to the 2020 election. They were worried that it might influence the election if people knew that Hunter Biden did all the bad shit that he was doing.
But like, so shouldn't it? Shouldn't it?
They capitulated and they censored that information. And both the Democrats and the Republicans contacted Twitter asking them to take down content on the platform and to restrict what people were saying on the platform, because of course they have to protect people. But keep in mind,
that's for protecting people, not themselves.
That Twitter and other private social media companies were essentially contacted by the government Gestapo and told what to say and do and allow on their platforms. How much safer are you after they did that in secret behind your back? How much safer are you after all the legislation that's passed before? How much safer are you really? How much safer are your children? And if everyone's worried about child safety, why is nobody taking their social media? Why is nobody limiting their electronic usage? Why is nobody actually fucking parenting
doing something other than saying, yeah, we'll let the government handle it?
This whole idea that everything that revolves around your family and your children, and realistically things that you could solve in your own household, we have to stop anticipating that the government has to
fix it for us
for you. They are not working in your best interest. They are not passing this legislation to try and make your life better. They're doing it so they have more control over you. They're doing it so there's more legal precedent to step further into your constitutional rights.
Yeah, if they put their hand in the bag once, if you let someone reach in your bag of food and take a fry once, the likelihood that the next time they do it and they take 2 fries is pretty fucking high. You have to slap the shit out of them for reaching into your bag of food so they don't do it again. Pretty simple.
Catchy, quirky names, and they're cherry-picking information to make you believe that this is what's going on. But
is this Redneck Rampage?
As Americans continue to allow this, we continue to allow.
I should have paid attention to the name of this game. Looks kind of fire, TBH.
Legislation that step by step is marching us further down the line towards constitutional rights being eroded. We are going to see the results and the ramifications of that a lot fucking sooner than people really want to realize or expect. And it's not going to be something that people like. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to be something you like. Because while you think that they may be targeting quote-unquote the other side and they're taking out their ideology,
what happens when they start taking out your ideology?
Tomorrow, what you think becomes the wrong think of the government. What you think is now against what the narrative is. And then
you never want to side with the government because, oh, they hate the other side. Because what happens when you become the other side? Like you just said it. What happens when you are wrong think? Now they're targeting you, the people you just voted for. The government is never on your side.
And then suddenly you're the target of all of this shit.
Wow.
Remember,
it's like I read his mind.
Anyway, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me.
You guys probably know who Optimus is, right? This guy's huge. I don't have to tell you to subscribe. He's got like 1.3 million subscribers.
Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus. Well, talking about the Kids Online Safety Act and signing out.
Look, I'm American, so watching this was very important. Like, if you're Canadian or something, or Mexican, maybe you should, like, see if a big content creator in your area is talking about it. And if they're not, maybe you should talk about it. Because a lot of governments, especially democratic governments, are pushing things like this now. And it's never for the safety of users and the safety of, like, internet users and the safety of children or whatever protected class they're saying they're trying to protect. It's almost never that. It's almost always so they can set a precedent to overreach in every situation they can and continue to take as much civil liberties away from you as possible. And I don't like to think that way, but I mean, it's been proven enough, at least in America. So maybe look at the history of your country. Maybe your country's way better off than America, and they're not pieces of garbage who just do things for their own gain and don't care about the rest of the country and the people that literally elected them. Maybe that's what it is. I would take a look. Anyways, this video was great. I thought it was really cool. If you guys don't know who Optimus is, you guys should go give a subscription to Optimus. But if you do know who Optimus is, just go and like the video and maybe listen to it on your free time too to give him the watch. because then it gives them money, and that's pretty important. I like money too. Hey, look, he's also supporting the veterans in crisis. Go deal with that as well. That'd be awesome. I don't have any money to donate. I have like $2 in my wallet right now.